Hey, I'm Alex Peebles.
Hey guys, I'm Zach.
My name is Sarah Duggan.
We have a great team.
Our topic and suggestions for managers to implement in their organizations is from our studies from the work of Dr. Lindred Greer, who focuses on the study of team and structures. Today we are here to talk about our research on intergroup conflict in high-power teams. So what is different about conflict in high-power teams? Well, what makes high-power teams different is that they are usually a type of management team that have control of the resources that affect the outcomes of the organizations. Most organizations operate with a hierarchical structure with high-power teams with no clear chain of command. This leads to intra-team conflicts caused by low power distance. Well, that can result in poor effectiveness, destruction of creativity, overconfident decision-making, and self-interested decisions that are usually a detriment to the organization.
You're fired. Get out of here.
Leaders do have proper methods of detecting conflict in high-powered teams, and it is usually indirect behaviors about respect that go undetected or attribute to that relational conflict. Well, the good news is that Greer has given us great insight onto how we can address this gap in our organizations. So first, let's talk about power. Dr. Greer defines power as the ability to influence others. Within teams, there are two types of power. You have high power and then you have low power. Well, high power, simply put, is the benefit of having authority over others in decision making.
It's too much power for one person.
Low power, however, is the lack of that authority over others in decision making. You might think of this as, a boss to an employee or Darth Vader to the stormtroopers. It is these two forms of power that usually lead to conflict. Understanding how to manage the different types of conflict and how to recognize when it's occurring in a high-powered team is pivotal to a healthy continuation of an organization, and it also helps maintain the effectiveness of the teams within that organization.
We're actually all on one team.
Let's look at the types of intra-team conflict that high-powered teams might be faced with.
Conflict is either one, functional, meaning supportive of performance, or two, dysfunctional, destructive of performance.
This will not stand.
Managers, of course, want to have only functional conflicts. Conflict becomes dysfunctional and destructive when it is about politics and power, and emotions become escalated.
That is correct.
A lack of emotional regulation can cause conflict to grow and manifest into other parts of the team. The most common type of conflict that is dysfunctional is relational conflict.
You are a terrible person.
And the focus for high-power teams needs to be on relational conflict and how it manifests. Relational conflict is what we see most commonly when looking at teams with high power, but is often looked past as a demographic variable of team performance. It occurs when a member of a high-power team is threatened by having to be in a lower position on the team. This happens because members of high-power teams have high self-efficacy and dominance and respond negatively to threats to their competence.
That's correct.
That's when we start to see this new form of conflict in high-power teams called status conflict. The common organizational obstacle with conflict is that high-power teams fail to see that intra-team relational conflict has become status conflict. It either gets ignored as a demographic variable or isn't addressed as status conflict.
No.
If it was, we could improve it by adjustments to the hierarchical structure. Status is often a primary determinant of resource allocations in groups. Therefore, when we look at solutions to status conflict, we need to look at power distance in our hierarchical structures.
So now let's talk about some solutions to this problem. What can managers do to help alleviate or prevent dysfunctional intra-team conflict in high-power teams?
Or maybe you could tell me, please.
Greer suggests that since these types of conflict tend to develop from relative respect, role ambiguity, and emotional unpredictability of leaders, that organizations can do three things now to develop better conflict management systems in their organizations. Number 1, create high power distance in the team where there is agreement of relative power hierarchy. By making clear roles and positions, power distance may help serve as a heuristic guide to conflict resolution in teams where members have low level of power. Number 2, build in rituals for hierarchical flexing. Hierarchical flexing allows us to have a clear chain of command which combats conflict to lateral hierarchy that allows space for people to share ideas and make mistakes in working toward organizational goals. Number 3, you need to identify emotional unpredictability in your individual leaders and teach them emotional regulation techniques. On top of that, if possible, you need to find and recruit leaders with a higher than normal emotional intelligence. That will really make things run more smoothly around your organization.
It works very well.
The common misconception in organizations is that conflict needs to be avoided. However, we only need to focus on eliminating the dysfunctional conflict. Intra-team conflict can be healthy and functional. Here are 3 reasons that we want functional conflict in high-powered teams. Conflict is an antidote for groupthink, as it allows the expression of opinions and the opportunity for intra-group team members to play devil's advocate with one another. Number 2, functional conflict furthers the creation of new ideas. It allows for a brainstorming and group decision making as pressures for conformity are minimized. Number 3, functional conflict promotes response to change. Teams can discuss disagreements of authentic interest to reach common goals towards the effectiveness of the organization.
Sounds like a pretty easy thing to do.